Hey, how's it going, guys? Today I'm going to teach you how to make a very versatile pizza dough at home, starting with a large bowl. Next, you'll need some 00 pizza flour or bread flour if you can't find the 00. You'll also need some extra virgin olive oil, some granulated sugar, as well as some salt. Then take 2.5 cups of water and add it to your large bowl. You're also going to add 1 tablespoon of sugar. This is to help the crust brown during baking. Next, we're going to add half a teaspoon of active dry yeast. Active dry yeast is very potent, much more potent than live yeast, so it's not necessary to use a whole lot, so I find that half a teaspoon is perfect for what we're doing, especially with making dough that is going to proof in the fridge over time, up to a week. Once you have your yeast, sugar, and water combined, give it a little stir like I am here. This just helps the water dissolve the sugar a little bit more so the yeast can bloom and multiply faster. As you can see here, the yeast has bloomed. It's not necessary to wait for this, however, so don't fret too much about it. The dough will rise regardless. Next, we're going to add 1 to 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. You can always add a little bit more later while kneading, however. Next, we're going to add our flour, about 5.5 cups. I'll usually add about a half cup more during the kneading process, but this is up to feel. I try to keep the dough on the stickier, wetter side, as this usually leads to a better, chewier, crunchier crust. Also, feel free to experiment with the amount of salt that you add to the flour, as this will affect the taste of the dough in the final product. As you can see here, I'm going to add about a pinch of kosher salt, but this can be more should you desire. Next, you'll want to grab a spatula and begin combining the ingredients until they start to form the beginnings of a dough. Once the dough starts to look like this, you'll know it's time to knead. Now you can knead in the bowl, which will save you the mess and allow for an easy workspace. Just apply a little bit of olive oil to your hands to keep the dough from sticking every so often. This isn't necessary, as it starts to get sticky, you can start kneading with the slap and fold technique, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. When the dough becomes too sticky to work with and you don't want to add more flour, simply apply a little bit of olive oil to your hands and then also to your work surface if you'd like to keep it from sticking. Remove it from the bowl. And then what you'll want to do is grab the dough from the sides and lift it up towards your face and then slap it down so that it folds on itself, sort of like I'm doing here. Then you're going to want to grab the opposite side and a sort of 90-degree turn, do the same thing repetitively, and this will knead the dough much faster and much easier. And this works really well for wet doughs that are difficult to work with. As I said before, add flour as needed. As you can see here, I'm just adding a little bit extra and then kneading in normally to incorporate in the new flour. And then once the dough becomes sticky again, I'll begin to slap and fold again, as you'll see right here. Once the dough becomes sticky and strong, apply a little bit of olive oil to your hands and then apply that olive oil to all sides of the dough and then let it rest under a bowl at room temperature for about 10 to 15 minutes. When we come back to the dough, you'll notice that it has grown in size and become a little bit smoother on top. You'll want to remove it from your work surface and then weigh it out on a scale like I'm doing here. This isn't necessary, but it does help if you're trying to create more even dough balls in the final process. Once the dough is weighed or you're ready to begin cutting, simply apply some olive oil to your work surface so that we're not changing the hydration of the dough, but also so that it doesn't stick. Then, whether or not you weighed your dough balls, you're going to want to try and divide them into 4 equal slices so that you can form them into proper dough balls. For this amount of dough that I've made, I'm going to be dividing them into approximately 335 gram dough balls so that I can have 4 equally sized dough balls. To create the dough balls, we're going to fold them in on themselves, therefore stretching the top layer of dough and folding the underside in on itself, trapping air inside of the dough. Once you've done that, you'll want to twist the bottom to close it shut, and then there you have a nice, round, smooth dough ball. Once you have your dough balls formed, you're going to want to take either glass or plastic containers, Put a little bit of olive oil into the bottom, put the dough into the container, and coat the entire outside of the dough with olive oil and the entire inside of the container with olive oil so that the dough balls do not stick. Once the olive oil is evenly coated, place the dough back on its bottom, and then there you have it, a dough ball perfectly ready for whenever you need it. You can proof them in the fridge, where it'll take anywhere from 12 to 24 hours to rise, and they'll last about a week. Or if you need them faster, you can proof them at room temperature, where it'll take about 1 to 3 hours. But this is how you make beautiful pizza dough that is restaurant quality right from home.